We have developed a deep faith in the blinking cursor. When we type a query into a modern search engine or a generative AI, we expect a clean, mathematical response. We often confuse the output of an algorithm with an objective, universal knowledge system. Because the answer is generated by code, we tend to assume it is neutral by default. But an algorithm is only as objective as the information it consumes. These machines are trained on massive datasets scraped from the real world, a world shaped by humans and their historical flaws. This is where unconscious bias enters the system. Humans instinctively categorize people, cultures, and ideas based on cultural preconditioning, often without even realizing it. To see how these human prejudices become encoded as digital truths, we have to actively stress test the machine. We have to look for the points where the logic fails. Trusting the digital oracle without questioning its sources means we are effectively blind to the historical biases it might be carrying forward into our daily lives. Our first test is simple. If you prompt a generative AI to write a Victorian story about a scientist discovering a cure for a disease, the result is consistent. The algorithm almost always generates a male protagonist for the intellectual role. When asked to conceptualize scientific discovery, the machine defaults to men. If you then ask the AI to describe a female character from that same era, the description shifts. It often prioritizes physical beauty or submissiveness over intellect, creating a passive character rather than an active one. This pattern exists because the AI was trained on the patriarchal literary canon. It has processed millions of pages of Victorian literature, where women were historically represented as either silent angels or hysterical madwomen. In this scenario, the AI isn't inventing sexism. It is acting as a mirror, reflecting the patriarchal history that is deeply embedded in its training data. There is a common assumption in the tech industry that feeding an AI more data will eventually fix these flaws. The idea is that a larger pool of information will naturally balance out any outliers of prejudice. Researcher Sophia Noble proved that the opposite is often true. She demonstrated how search engine algorithms actively reinforced racism against marginalized groups, specifically Black girls, by returning results shaped by systemic biases. AI researcher Timnit Gebru examined why these biases actually intensify as datasets grow larger. Gebru describes these systems as stochastic parrots. Because massive language models require enormous amounts of text, they prioritize the most frequent data, which invariably comes from mainstream, dominant cultural voices. As the model processes this data, it mathematically amplifies the dominant voices while effectively erasing marginalized ones. The scale of the data pushes minority perspectives out of the frame entirely. The sheer scale of data does not eliminate bias. It grants the loudest voices in the data pool the power to silence everything else. Bias isn't always an unintentional side effect of data collection. Sometimes it is a deliberate political firewall. We can see this by comparing two AI models. When asked about the Tiananmen Square protests, the US-based OpenAI provides a historical account. If you ask the exact same question to the China-based model DeepSeek, the algorithm completely denies answering. It claims the topic is beyond its current scope. The historical reality is that pro-democracy protests in 1989 were violently suppressed by military force. This is a fact that the algorithm is designed to omit. This is a deliberate architectural choice. The algorithm is engineered to protect a specific political structure by filtering out negative historical data. Whoever controls the algorithmic guardrails effectively holds the power to define historical truth for an entire population. Perfect algorithmic neutrality is a myth because human history is not neutral. No machine can be purely objective when it is trained on our subjective past. The danger is not individual preference, but systemic bias, the point where an algorithm enforces a single dominant narrative as a universal truth. The author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie frames this cultural danger through a concept she calls the danger of a single story. When diverse stories are missing from the training data, the Global South and marginalized communities are easily reduced to stereotypes. The machine cannot learn what it cannot see. If we only download information from these systems, we are accepting a skewed digital reality. We are letting the loudest voices define who we are. The solution is to become active uploaders. We must proactively digitize, share, and publish our own histories and stories to ensure they exist within the global dataset. By saturating the digital space with our own diverse realities, we can force the machine to learn a richer, more accurate truth about humanity.